Homes. The new dollar. It may not quite look right, but it is okay.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. One of America's richest men today made the single richest gift ever to education, $500 million to public schools in this country. Walter Annenberg, who made his money in TV Guide, other publications, radio and television, made this announcement with President Clinton at the White House. As NBC national correspondent Bob Kerr reports tonight, it was great generosity inspired by all the recent news of great violence.
The 85-year-old billionaire philanthropist could have cited low test scores or poor performance in announcing his unprecedented gift. But Walter Annenberg said there was another reason: violence.
If this continues, it will not only erode the educational system, but will destroy our way of life in the United States.
President Clinton called the $500 million grant remarkable, wonderful.
This is a very, very important day for American education and for America's future.
The president said the timing couldn't be better. In a student survey this week, 13% said they'd carried weapons to school. Nearly 1 in 4 have been victims of violence in or near schools.
And there's almost a direct correlation, as we can notice, of dropping out of school and leading this life of despair, of violence, of poverty, of spiritual numbness.
Annenberg's $500 million will fund a variety of innovative programs that show promise in reforming education, from building design to curriculum and teaching methods. Over 5 years, Annenberg hopes his grants will be matched by other private and government money. Among the first to receive a grant, Ted Sizer, a successful education reformer.
Our standards for our students and ourselves are not high enough, and even the relatively mediocre and sloppily defined standards that we have are not met.
But neither money nor schools can solve the problem alone. If, as Annenberg contends, violence is the crisis, that can't be solved until it's solved in the communities where students live. Bob Kerr, NBC News, Washington.
Later on this broadcast, Walter Annenberg, an American close-up. More about this man who gives away so much and why. The White House was also happy today about some other impressive numbers: new homes under construction, one of the measuring rods of the American economy. In November, new home construction was up again. NBC chief financial correspondent Mike Jensen with that now.
It's the 4th month in a row that construction of new homes and apartments has picked up speed. And it's finally happening in the Northeast, at places like this development in Warren, New Jersey. Painter Beth Parcell.
Right now it's picking up. It's getting real busy again.
Here's the national breakdown for November. Housing starts in the Northeast shot up 17.4%. In the South, up 8.4%. In the Midwest, they slipped 2%. And in the West, down 2.8%. Falling mortgage rates are responsible for a lot of the national gain of almost 4% in housing. 30-year rates are down 3 percentage points in the last 3 years. Low interest rates and good economic news also are powering the stock market. Today, the Dow was up more than 25 points. All the evidence points to even more home building in the months ahead. Contractors are applying for building permits at the fastest pace in 4 years. And in a national survey of home builders, the optimists outnumbered the pessimists by a margin of 10 to 1.
The outlook for the future is bright. We are buying more property, and we are getting ready for a great 94.
More houses being sold means more furniture and carpets and washing machines, and more jobs for the people who make them and sell them. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
And although we all know that the dollar is not what it once was, it's still the real thing, even when it may not look it. That's been a problem for East Coast merchants recently, and we have that story from NBC's Pete Williams tonight.
I went to buy
At a mall in South Florida, a store thought this woman's dollar bill was counterfeit.
I was very, very embarrassed. I felt the heat going up.
At this supermarket in the Bronx, the checkers spotted it.
We started noticing some of the bills were a little bit thicker, and certain numbers were missing out of the bills and certain details.
Thousands of calls were coming into the Secret Service, but the new bills are not counterfeit. The government announced the new look in June of '92. Few apparently noticed. It's the result of a new printing process, more than twice as fast, to meet rising worldwide demand for U.S. currency.
In order to meet those demands, we had to look to the most advanced technology that's available.
The most obvious difference, the plate number is gone from where it used to be on the front of the new bill. On the back, the new bill has a plate number on top of the big E. The old one had it underneath. The new bill doesn't have as much definition, so George Washington looks less tanned and has lost some hair. Treasury officials say they're still perfecting the new process, but with 8 billion pieces of currency to print a year, they'll soon be doing more denominations this way. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
When Nightly News continues, the tug of war over the Pentagon budget with billions on the line. A different kind of family values fight tonight, a Bible Belt town versus a lesbian retreat. And when does free time wind up costing a fortune? State colleges are cracking down on professors who spend more time studying than teaching. Battle of the budget is off to an early start this year at the Pentagon with what may be the last fight for outgoing Defense Secretary Les Aspin. NBC's Jim Miklashevsky now.
At a kid's Christmas party at the White House, President Clinton had good news for the Pentagon. After budget talks today, he said a projected shortfall in the Pentagon budget won't be that bad.
I was most encouraged that OMB and the Council of Economic Advisors and the Pentagon all agree that the number is considerably smaller than $50 billion, in the range of 30.
Because of inflation and a pay raise for the military, it was estimated the Pentagon would come up $50 billion short over the next 5 years. Due to lower inflation figures, that's now put at $31.5 billion. The Pentagon is looking at one way to soften the blow, stretch out the $31 billion over 10 years instead of 5. But key members of Congress argue the military is already cut to the bone.
I believe that readiness will be affected. I think quality of the forces will decline, and eventually the overall national security will be affected adversely.
That puts the president in a real political bind. Under current budget caps, he'd have to force the Pentagon to eat the loss or take the money from some of his domestic social programs. The battle between the Pentagon and the president's budget office broke into open warfare last weekend.
The fight appeared in the press because Leon Panetta talked to reporters and laid out the issues.
3 days later, Defense Secretary Les Aspin resigned, but today he played the good soldier and led White House budget talks.
To keep the budget on track, all this should be wrapped up before Christmas, but the fight is not over. Budget officials here still don't believe that the Pentagon can't take even deeper cuts. Jim Miklashevsky, NBC News, the White House.
We have more tonight on that political crisis in Haiti. The man the U.S. supported, deposed President Jean-Bertrand Aristide, now has all but lost the backing of the Clinton administration. NBC's John Dancy explains.
The United States has effectively abandoned the idea of restoring President Aristide to power, even though Secretary of State Christopher supports him publicly.
The United States is resolute about pursuing the restoration of democracy and the return of President Aristide.
The last best hope for that was a peace conference Aristide's former Prime Minister, Robert Malval, tried to arrange with all factions in Haiti. President Clinton backed the scheme. But Malval's plan would have meant Aristide sharing power with others, and Aristide rejected the idea. Now there are few options. For one thing, NBC News has learned the U.S. does not intend to use force to restore Aristide.
State Department officials are clearly annoyed with Aristide for rejecting the plan, but he has powerful support on Capitol Hill, and for State to back away from him in public would be highly embarrassing and could start a fight with Congress. John Dancy, NBC News, the State Department.
The former sergeant of arms of the House, Jack Russ, was sentenced to 2 years in prison today. He pleaded guilty in October to embezzling more than $75,000 from the now defunct House Bank when he was sergeant at arms. In Michigan, Dr. Jack Kevorkian was released from jail today after reduced bond of $100 was posted, and after Kevorkian also promised not to help any more people commit suicide. He was ordered to wear an electronic monitoring device. When we come back in just a moment, why some taxpayers are angry at the way state colleges use their most important resources, the professors. There was still another mass shooting in this country today. In Hugo, Oklahoma, near the Texas border, a man opened fire in the parking lot of a Walmart store. He shot 3 people, killing 2 of them before killing himself. There is no word tonight on a motive. Over the past 10 days, however, there have been 7 mass shootings. The toll now, 20 people dead, 28 wounded. In a tiny Mississippi town where almost all of the residents share what they call Christian values, there's a major culture clash underway between the locals and some newcomers. NBC's Kenley Jones has that story.
Brenda and Wanda Henson are longtime lesbian lovers. Last summer, they moved to the small town of Ovett, Mississippi, population 450, and began building a feminist educational retreat called Sister Spirit. They had wanted to do it quietly, but this is the Bible Belt, where homosexuality is looked on as a sin.
This count represents Satan.
Let them go back to California. They seem to love them out there.
More than 200 residents of Ovett and surrounding Jones County have organized against the Hensons. They want them to take their retreat somewhere else. James Hendry is chairman of the group.
If you're a Christian, you believe that this lifestyle is wrong in God's eyes, and you've got to stand up for that.
Brenda Henson disagrees.
I think they need to educate themselves about differences, and I think they need to act on their Christian faith as to love thy neighbor and to not throw stones.
Despite threatening phone calls, a dead dog placed on their mailbox, and armed men trespassing on their property, the Hensons say they have a right to their land and their lifestyle, and they aren't moving.
I dare say, if they touch a hair on my head, that the rest of the nation, and not just gay and lesbian Americans, but anybody who believes in freedom, will be here in protest.
The Hensons' opponents will urge county officials to outlaw the retreat as harmful to the health and morals of the community. The Hensons say they would fight that in court as a violation of their civil rights. Kenley Jones, NBC News.
College professors are often criticized for living an insulated life in an ivory tower. That's why tenured professors are often given paid time off to go back into the real world for research. But citizens fed up with footing the bill now are asking about all of these subsidized vacations. NBC's Roger O'Neill tonight.
Under increasing pressure from state lawmakers, the University of Colorado has abolished paid leaves of absence. Sabbatical policies for faculty will also be limited. The university came under fire when a $91,000 a year vice chancellor planned to take 8 months off with pay to study Shakespeare. Across the country, tax-supported colleges and universities are being told to change the way they do business.
The public wants us to pay far more attention to students, to our teaching and learning agenda, and probably spend less time on our research.
The average college teacher spends just 10 hours a week in the classroom. How tenured faculty at most universities spend their time has been one of those sacred cows until now. Senior faculty in Arizona have been ordered to teach more freshman, sophomore courses. Professors in Florida will be paid more for teaching big classes. In Ohio, tenured faculty will be expected to teach more. And Oregon wants university professors to increase their accessibility to students. In Colorado, a sabbatical with pay is guaranteed every 6 years. Professor Larry Dodd is taking 2 semesters off to write 2 books.
I think one needs to move back and forth between heavy focus on teaching, a heavy focus on research and intellectual rejuvenation.
But the question is, do students benefit from their teachers taking time off?
Universities are in the knowledge business, and that means that from time to time it's important to really update one's skills and abilities.
But in this report just issued by a panel of corporate CEOs, labor leaders, and educators, higher education got failing grades. Too many colleges, the report said, worry more about faculty research than educating students. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Boulder, Colorado.
A federal judge approved a settlement today under which General Motors would send 6 million owners of its pickup trucks coupons, good for a $1,000 rebate on a new truck. The owners had sued GM, saying that allegations about gas tank safety decreased their truck's value. The Center for Auto Safety says that it will appeal this settlement and try to force GM to modify those trucks. When we come back, one town in Israel, a symbol of the struggle for peace between Arabs and Israelis. Talk of new delays in the Middle East peace process tonight. Israel's Prime Minister Rabin said that he won't meet PLO leader Yasser Arafat again until he's sure they can resolve differences on a plan for Palestinian self-rule. NBC's Martin Fletcher tonight on one town that is ground zero in this struggle.
It's the most explosive town in the occupied West Bank, Hebron, where in the heart of the city, 41 Jewish families live among 80,000 Arabs and refuse to leave. Where it is not today's peace process that rules, but the Bible's command of an eye for an eye. It's written in the Bible that 3,500 years ago, Abraham, father of the Jews and Arabs, bought this land for 400 shekels. For the fundamentalist Jews who live here in Hebron today, that means it's their land, and they say they're staying. On one side of the street, in a virtual fortress called Beit Hadassah, 17 of those Jewish families live behind the guns and by the book.
I don't want my children to grow up and die at a war. Of course I want peace, but this isn't peace. This is an illusion.
Israeli soldiers guard the settlers from the Arabs who live just across the street. But Omishugri Sharabati, an Arab, says she's the one who needs protection.
The settlers are all the time intimidating us. They are terrorizing us and our children.
Children learn early the language of hate. Arabs throw stones and bottles. An Israeli child tries to strike a passing Arab. Another spits at an Arab woman. Soldiers try to keep the peace and increasingly fail. To survive, the settlers of Hebron believe they have to terrify the Arabs or be killed themselves. Most Israelis dismiss these settlers as dangerous fanatics, but also fear them as obstacles to the peace process. The settlers' answer to the peace process is more settlers. Despite the dangers, another Jewish family moves into Beit Hadassah, teaching another generation that this city of Abraham belongs to the Jews, at whatever the price. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Hebron, on the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
American combat troops are on their way home from Somalia tonight. 450 soldiers are heading back to Fort Drum, New York. Another 2,000 are expected home before Christmas. When we come back, the man behind that huge gift to public education today, Walter Annenberg, an American Close-Up tonight. In American Close-Up tonight, Walter Annenberg, the billionaire who today gave $500 million to challenge others to help American public education. He's been a friend of presidents and American ambassador to Great Britain, but with today's gift, he secures his place as a great philanthropist who is moved by what he sees. Mr. Ambassador, this is an extraordinary gift. What do you hope to achieve?
Well, quite frankly, I hope to achieve an awakening of the public as to what has to be done for the benefit of our country.
This is not the first time Annenberg has made news with big contributions to education. Just last June, he gave away $365 million to 4 schools, the largest one-time gift ever made to private education. 3 years earlier, Annenberg gave $50 million to the United Negro College Fund. What is it that so touches you that makes you give this extraordinary gift? You're a very private man to put yourself in such a public way into this public issue.
Well, I'll tell you very frankly, I have been very favorably blessed economically. Accordingly, I have a great obligation to my country.
His own fortune grew from the newspaper empire started by his father, a Jewish immigrant. Walter Annenberg added radio and television, and he made a great deal of money in the post-war boom. In those early days of television, he created TV Guide, which quickly became America's best-selling magazine. Annenberg finally sold his Triangle publications 5 years ago for more than $3 billion. 5 presidents have been entertained at Sunnylands, Annenberg's 250-acre oasis near Palm Springs, and his art collection is considered to be one of the finest in the world. But his primary interest these days is education. He's disturbed by the wave of violence among the country's young people.
When we read about grade school students and high school students carrying knives and revolvers into the classroom, If you're not moved by that, then you've got a very thick skin.
He is moved enough to give nearly $1 billion to this cause in just 1 year, keeping at bay so many other charities who would like a piece of his considerable fortune. Don't you hear from a great many people, Mr. Annenberg, who would like to get some of your money?
Why, I'm under siege. Don't you know the story of life? Harassment is just around the corner.
But it's better if you can afford it.
Oh, yes. It helps to soften things.
Ambassador Annenberg hopes that his gift today will start a crusade in this country, that other foundations, corporations, and also his rich friends will join in. That's Nightly News for this Friday night. Brian Williams will be here tomorrow night. Sunday and Meet the Press, Tim Russert's guest will be Treasury Secretary Lloyd Benson. I'll see you back here again Monday night.